that joint announcement from Ted Cruz and John Kasich shaking up the Republican presidential race this morning, especially here in the Hoosier State. This morning we're joined by our political insider, Abdul Hakim-Shabazz. Always great to see you.
I forgot what you guys was like here in the morning.
Right, exactly. Very early. Very early. So Abdul's here to talk about this this moving forward, what it means for voters here, and you got word about it early. In fact, an insider you're saying in Kasich campaign telling you to get your account.
Yeah, about 20 minutes before the announcement became public, I heard from a source I have inside the Kasich campaign saying, hey, let you know John Kasich is suspending his campaign in Indiana so he can focus on Oregon and Mexico, so that way they can give it to Ted Cruz. And strategically, it makes sense because remember, in a campaign you have very limited resources. So if John Kasich is coming in third in Indiana and Ted Cruz is very competitive here, then let Ted Cruz take Indiana. Meanwhile, in exchange for that, Kasich goes to work out in New Mexico, out in Oregon, where they have about 54 delegates, which is almost the same as they have here in Indiana.
Trump sent out a tweet saying this was desperate. Do you think this is a sign of desperation? Does he have some validity to that statement?
It's a sign of political tactics, and it's coming down to the wire. That's what this is a sign of. And you got to remember, in all the polls that have been out, Donald Trump is really only about 41%. That means 60% of Republicans want somebody else. The problem has always been that field has always been crowded and divided. So the logic is, at least from Mr. Kasich and Mr. Cruz's perspective, is, hey, if one of us steps out, the other one has a much better chance of maybe capturing a good chunk of that 60% vote.
Can you remember in any of your political dealings this ever happening in a presidential race?
Not since it was like the 1800s, and I wasn't alive back then. So, I mean, no.
So as a recent memory, this is unprecedented.
Yeah, in the modern era, this is an all bets are off universe. Anything can happen, and it still can and probably will.
All right. So your sights, as we move forward, you see a contested convention in Cleveland.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with these next string of primaries, like Pennsylvania, Maryland, Connecticut, some of those places.
Those happening first.
Those happening first, because right now Donald Trump is about 46% of the delegates that he needs, and so the question is, will those, if he has major wins in those places, does that put him closer, to getting to that 50 plus 1%?
All right, so in your opinion, Abdul, who becomes the nominee for the Republican convention?
I think it's contested and it's still wide open. I really do. After that, it's roll the dice and Katie bar the door.
Wow, okay. A lot of debate going on with this one, this teaming up that we haven't seen before, so we'll have to keep our eye on that and see what happens. Abdul, always great to see you here and get your political insight there.
Now I gotta go find some coffee since it's like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, there's a break room nearby. Hey, and you can follow all of our Democracy 2016 coverage on the RTV6 app. We're also your election home this and every Sunday morning on Indianapolis this week. You can watch that starting at 8:30 only on RTV6. Beth?